Hello and welcome to another episode of All About Branding. I'm your host Frank, as always, and here we are doing a live stream on YouTube and Instagram Live. I'm a little pepped up, and also the podcast as well. If you're listening, welcome. I'm pepped up because I just watched part 5 of the new Obi-Wan Kenobi series. This show is firing me up, something extra. If you haven't watched it, if you're not into it, fair enough. It's all good. You got a Star Wars fanboy here anyway. So, I am talking today about a new thing about branding. Probably nothing new here, potentially. But if you're here new to my content experience, this might be news to you. Or if you're working with a business, you own a business, you're working with people that have businesses in the branding space like I am, this might be of help to you. Because these are a few things that I've found that work and don't work, or what you need to worry or don't worry about the most when it comes to developing a brand and then using that brand to market your business and connect with your consumers, be it your audience, be it your clients, be it your customers, be it your mum and dad, who knows. So I'm going to dive straight into this and let's see how we go. Might take up about an hour here. Let's see how fast I can get through it. If you have any questions while you're watching here live on Instagram, please, there's a question box there. I'll come back to them at the end and I'll read some of them out if there are any. And stick around. Here we go. Straight up. Many business owners do the following, I think, when it comes to ticking the boxes for marketing their business. And maybe this has been your experience too, because it definitely was mine when I first started G'day Frank. First step, choose a name. Get the web address. Hopefully it's available, fingers crossed. You then make a logo. You set up a basic website, which nowadays might have also come with a free logo and a free web address. And then you put up some posts on social media for a few weeks, maybe 6 months. Then someone comes along and says you need to do better SEO and do ads on Facebook, Google, LinkedIn even, maybe even TikTok. And this is often when a designer like me gets the call up to make the creative for that content. Be it the ads, be it the blog posts, the social media posts, the carousels, even reels and videos now. To make them look presentable, because you know you need to put yourself out there and have some semblance of a digital presence nowadays. And I know the feeling because I'm that designer for my own business as well. I'm the guy that has to do the content. However, what I also do is obviously branding. And I'll be honest to say that many who want to market their business don't have a brand to work with. They have a business, obviously. They have a product or service and a logo perhaps as well. So it's a little horse before the cart. I've talked about this before in some content on Instagram. You might have seen it possibly. And it's trying to get your name out there to market before you've got a good foundation to work with. The good news here is that this is totally fine, but it has the potential to hold you back from the greater return on the investment that you want to put into your marketing for your business. Because that person that told you that you need better SEO and to do those ads on Facebook and Google and all the rest of them, amongst other things to market your business, is totally right. You should be doing this to market your business. However, you're going to need a brand, and there are 4 things. I'm going to bring this up here on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. 4 things your brand can't get wrong. And those 4 things I'm going to cover off quickly here. They're going to come up on the screen in a second here for you watching at home. But they are knowing who you're connecting with, committing to what your brand stands for, using one single message constantly, and the 4th one is captivating visuals and audio to capture attention. This is what your brand really needs to get right, in other words. And to be honest, you can get these things totally wrong. It's all good. Don't fret. The title is just there to grab your attention. But these 4 things truly are the foundation of what your brand is and does, beyond what it is you sell, what it is you do to make money. So let me hit you with what these 4 things mean to your business and why you can't get it wrong, or why you can't get it wrong for those that you are working with if you're a branding person like me, because I know a lot of you that watch my content and listen to it are in that same shoes, those same shoes as me. I'm going to pause here for a second. If you're watching here live on Instagram, thanks for joining. Pop a comment down the bottom question, maybe. There's a question box. I'll come back to it at the end and we can answer some questions and make that part of this show for All About Branding. Thank you for joining. Now, the first one, let's bring it up here on YouTube. Knowing who you're connecting with. So when you develop a brand, it becomes what I like to think is the connector between your business and your consumers. If you don't know who you're trying to sell to, how can you expect to effectively market your business offering to them? So what we need to do is to get to know them, know why they would need what you're selling, know when would they need it, know how and where you can get under their noses, and know what will make them buy what you have to offer, or at least buy into if you're not offering something tangible, let's say. Getting a decent idea of this helps you position your brand in the right place at the right time and maybe even influence the product or service that you offer. It might mold what it is you offer and change things up a little bit. You might have to do that over time, which could be anything from your packaging that it comes in to the experience that your consumer receives as a result of engaging with you. So if you know your target consumer is in a specific location, guess what? You can target those ads that we were talking about at the start here to their location. It makes your marketing easier. Why you can't get this wrong is that it becomes a waste of your money when you're trying to market your business without a target market to aim your marketing darts at. Though I'm not suggesting that you need to think of it as skewering, like literally skewering your consumers. It's just a metaphor. We're not playing darts here, obviously. So gaining this clarity of who your target market is and putting it down on paper makes every step of your marketing easier, no matter if they're obvious or not. You know, they might be bleeding obvious that you make little girls' clothes for someone like my daughter. You know who the target market is. It's not the girl, it's the mother or the father, the parent. So this is all about branding. This is all part of it. Not to mention, it also influences other parts of your brand, like your message, your colors, or what your brand stands for. Which leads me nicely into point 2, which is committing to what your brand stands for. You can see it up here on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast or you hear it on Instagram, you obviously can't see it. Again, any questions from that last point, leave them down here on Instagram Live. We'll come back to them at the end. So committing to what your brand stands for is something that I mentioned in this last point, that a brand becomes the connector between your business and your consumers. Equally important to this is that your brand is also the foundation for connecting your team to your business, so that you are all, as a team, founders and your teams and managers and all the rest of the people that go into your organization, are on the same page with where your business is heading. This is why I call it a brand direction. It helps unify the team culture that everyone can get behind, and you can have a situation where you use this to maybe hire people by, or even fire by the criteria that you have for what your brand stands for. Now, what helps generate an impact on your business is identifying what your brand stands for. It acts as this North Star to kind of work towards. In other words, what is your brand there to do beyond making money, otherwise known as a brand purpose? Then what do you value in the day-to-day operations of your business and the consumer experience you want to deliver, also known as your brand values? Pick 1 to 3. Don't make it more complex than it needs to be. So some of these things could be having exceptional service, accountability, availability, time saving, adaptability, better communication or more communication, environmental change, creating some impact there, or having financial, health, spiritual, business, or career support for your consumers. It can be very simple or it can be quite complex. Though, to be perfectly honest with you, the simpler it is, the better it will work out to be in terms of playing it out for all facets of your business. This needs to radiate out to all facets of your business. Whatever this may be for your business, this is what your brand stands for and might also represent what it promises to deliver, which for many brands is what will set them apart. That differentiator, if you will. Not to say that I want to say that you need to be entirely different from somebody else. I've talked about that in a previous All About Branding episode. You can check that article, that podcast, that YouTube live stream again. But why you can't get this wrong in terms of committing to what your brand stands for is that I see many founders and teams that aren't willing to commit to what it is their brand stands for and simply just default back to focusing on their product or service and just trying to sell the thing. Meaning that developing your brand becomes a wasted opportunity for a clear direction. You're wasting your money in someone like me, effectively, that comes in and sets your foundations and then you just kind of steamroll it. Or you leave it, the plot there, if you want to take like a real estate metaphor, you leave the plot of land just sitting there dying for attention for a house to be built on it. Much the same as gaining the clarity of knowing who your consumers are, committing to this brand of yours and embracing what it stands for can influence many external factors of what makes your brand what it is to others. This includes your team, in terms of them properly giving a shit about what it is you have to sell or what it is they're selling to your consumers and what it is you do, because understanding and embracing that creates some impact to know what they're working towards to achieve. And frankly, this commitment and the confidence that comes with it rubs off when communicating what you have to offer with your consumers from marketing or communicating in person. So let's be real. If you're not committed to your brand, I'm going to lay this one on you. How do you expect your consumers to commit to what you have to offer? Get serious about your brand and commit to it with some serious confidence. I'm going to let you ponder on that for a second. For those of you still here on Instagram, hello. Thanks for joining. Stick around if you want to. If not, it's all good. It is a long stream. You can leave a comment down the bottom and I'll answer it at the end. You can watch it back on YouTube or listen to it on the podcast. Now, let's go into point 3. And that was using a single message consistently and constantly. Now, with so much to remember in your business, and I'm there with you, me trying to remember every facet of my business is, and then also having many facets that make your brand what it is, complicating that with more words than needed is just something else you need to remember. It dilutes the message that you need to convey. And what this means is that when it comes to your brand messaging, if you can get what it is you have to say to your consumers down to as fewer words as possible, it does 2 things. 1, it's easier to remember so that it rolls off the tongue and you're more likely to use it time and time again. You know, I use this whole captivating moments of connection from clarity to describe how it is I see branding and what it is I deliver as a brand designer. I use these vernacular, even the call to action that I have, say g'day today. All these things, a single kind of message that I can remember and use easily. You want to give that to your team for them to use just as easily. And the second point to it is that it communicates your point succinctly for your consumers to connect with and buy into it from a relatively easy to understand message, if you can make it so. Now, this is going to be a little bit controversial, I guess. As an example, whether you like this one or not, the phrase "Make America Great Again" was the single greatest message for the Trump administration. and it's what it used to get its message out there before and after their election. And it's what got them voted into power. Say what you will about that. It brought all their talking points, though, back to this central message. Not only that, but it also tapped into the disillusionment of many citizens to vote and support that presidency. No matter if they lived up to that promise or not, America was falling down in terms of its position on the world stage. The admirability of them, at that point in time. Additionally, whether or not Donald Trump's vocabulary was intentional, I don't think it was, or reflective of his own aptitude is up for debate. But at the root of that message, it had a simple bit of language that anybody could understand to appeal to the masses. So, as a learning point, if anything from that administration, if you can find a statement that embodies what your brand stands for and is working towards delivering, it will help your consumers understand why they should choose you over others. Why you can't get this wrong is that you have too many different messages going on at the same time, or if it's too complex, it becomes too hard to communicate. It's too much for you and for your consumer to take in, and for your team. Especially if it's the first time a consumer is engaging with your brand. It's information overload. The point is not to say you can't add more context to this single message. Instead, the goal is to bring all of the language you use back to this one, or I should just say like this kind of angle, a little triangle pointing upwards, one single message that at least supports, that main message. It can also be reflected, in the concept that you use to develop your visual identity. I often do this where I'll take a single concept that unifies the brand. It's in the values, it's in your positioning statement, it's in all these things. And then that becomes a crux for what visual representation that turns into. And you can see that in some of the work that I've put out there. Or it could align with your internal direction and be embedded into the consumer experience that you offer. So if you can get it down to one message, and one message that is right, that forms that foundation for your brand, it becomes a key message that you can deliver in your marketing. Bringing it back here to marketing, it's the next point after branding, to utilize it consistently and make that message more effective. Make your messaging great again. There we go. Okay, we're nearly up to point 4 here. Thank you so much for joining here on Instagram Live. I haven't looked at any of the kind of comments here yet. There are some questions. I'll come back to them towards the end here. But point 4 is captivating visuals and audio that captures attention. Now, my whole thing about branding is captivating moments of connection as a result of clarity. Sure, we can develop the best message and stand for the most courageous, earth-changing purpose on the planet. But how do you expect people to see you or hear you without you standing out above the noise, standing out in the crowd? Now, most of us are fortunate to have been born with 2 working eyes and ears that let us identify and recognize our surroundings. That's obvious. However, what's not obvious is how many small to medium businesses utilize branding to capture the attention of our eyes and our ears. It's a wasted opportunity. Now, this is going to sound a little brutal. Stick with me. The effort put into gaining this attention is frankly pedestrian, if I'm honest. Which, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, and you feel seen, it's a good thing, because it's telling you that change is needed. It's a bit of tough love, I'll grant you that. But don't you want consumers to recognize you first? Isn't that the goal? Or when they see your brand colors elsewhere, to think of you. I talked about this in a post the other day. Someone saw a slippery when wet sign that was pink rather than yellow, and they thought of my brand. That story will always stick with me. But it also might be even having a jingle that could get stuck in someone's head for eternity on repeat. If you've ever watched that movie, Inside Out, that Pixar Disney movie, where they go into the mind of this little girl and then this catchphrase jingle comes up about, I think it's like a breath mint or a cereal or something. And it's like, just comes back and like, oh my God, my train of thought's gone. So to bring it back here, I'm going off track here, but captivating visuals and audio are going to draw in the attention of your consumers. They don't need to be award-winning, nor should a brand designer ever tell you the more you spend, the better the logo you'll get. However, there's a caveat to it, you'll likely get a more considered outcome, which is of value if you're for your business in the long run, and even the short run too, if you do invest in a more experienced brand specialist. Maybe it's me. And all this comes back to the point of captivating more attention than your consumers. Sorry, than your customers. Sorry, no, they're not your customers, not your consumers, your competitors. There's too many C words. I'm not going to mention that other one. You're trying to captivate the attention more than your competitors are getting. More attention than your competitors are getting. With brand elements that you can use to your advantage, just the same as they're probably trying to do, which is your color. And that's the first thing we usually identify a brand with. Imagery, be it our face, some kind of illustration, typographic, maybe it's the logo. Animation, because movement will capture our attention too. Jingles and theme music, as I mentioned before. And then our signage and packaging. Why you can't get this wrong comes down to distinctively standing out in your market. Be it standing out amongst the crowd of competition, using red when most competitor brands are using blue. I talked about this in the last episode of All About Branding. Check that one out, about choosing your colors. Or to capture and hold the attention, which is something that you could do in an Instagram 15-second ad that you then want consumers to click through to. And that's because, saying if you build it, they will come doesn't really play out anymore if you're not standing out or easily found. So how do you expect a consumer to find you and connect with you if you don't give them a little bit of breadcrumbs to then keep going and keep looking into what you have to offer? We have this really short attention span. You might have noticed it. TikTok videos go really, really short. They do really, really well. If you make a long one, it doesn't do as well. I don't know why I make an hour-long podcast or a YouTube live stream, but here we are. If you're into it, it's here. Adding to this, your brand actually needs to look and sound attractive. Funny that. If you can produce a professional look, quite seriously, a professional sound and message together, bring it all together, and put it in every time, place, situation that you show up to always look the same, sound the same, it tells your consumers that you mean business when your appearance is well put together. Those first impressions count. This instills confidence to then want to connect with your brand and gets them over that barrier, let's say, to consider buying into what it is you have to sell. So those were the 4 things that look, at the end of the day, you need to get right. You can't get them wrong, but it can take a little bit to get there. So no matter how long it takes you to get it right, that's the goal you're working towards. Because your brand is always going to be a work in progress. You're not going to get things right the first time. Sure, you might also stray every now and then, or your market attention may shift. due to maybe viability. You have to change market direction. You have to choose who you're going after in terms of a target market. And you might need to explore new options based on current trends. People's tastes change over time. But this is where you can utilize things, two things in particular. The first is periodically conducting a brand strategy, maybe every year or maybe even less, maybe less frequent, who knows. I've written an article about that. I think that was the second part of All About Branding. It's all about brand strategy, the steps you can take that you can go through with your team or with someone like myself to develop what you're going to be doing next. It gives you a really good plan of attack, effectively. The second thing is referring back to your brand identity guidelines. So if you develop your brand identity with someone like myself, I give you this document that has your internal brand direction, your purpose, your values, those things I talked about before, what your brand messaging is to refer back to and utilize and use as a guide. Doesn't need to be verbatim. So this can be your tagline, your USP, so your unique selling proposition, your story, and any other language that you use to communicate what it is you do, how you do it, who you do it for. And then also your visual identity, so your logo, your colors, all those things. You utilize those things that can help you stay on trend, on target, fix what problems are going on in your business to try and fit your brand with the most viable target market. They'll keep you on that straight and narrow path to not only creating a great brand over time, but it also guides better marketing in the short and in the long term. So there was one question here. Here we go. Someone's question is just totally off base. We're not even going to go there. I have no idea what that person was on. Alrighty. Let's go into this last part here. Now, before I close this out, I want to offer up another list. Yes, it's another list of 4 things related to your brand, but this time it's 4 things that I want you to worry less about, because they mean less to the success of your brand than any other facet that will impact your success. I believe this because I've found them to be true in my own experience of marketing my business to my consumers and seeing it with other businesses as well. Now, the first thing here is your logo. Now, as long as it's trademarkable, if that's even a word, don't sweat on it to communicate everything that your brand represents. Ensure that it is a simple, if it's a simple mark that anybody could recreate from memory, that's all I'll say. If it's easy to do that for your consumers to what you call, I guess, the sketch test, if they can recall your logo from memory and jot it down and get it right, you're onto a winner. If you make it more complex than that, it is harder to recall and remember it in context, to see it from a far distance. You look at any successful big ass brand out there, look at their logos, learn from that. The second one, in terms of not worrying about it, in my experience, is your brand mission or brand vision. If you've not heard of either of these, stick with me here. We'll press on or fast forward, whatever you need to the next one. But if you have a mission and a vision for your brand, are admirable, I'll give you that, but are, in my view, long-term aspirations that rarely influence your day-to-day actions that you're going to take to make some kind of impact. And they're especially not as useful if your vision for long-term success being achieved is realistically many, many, many years into the future. And it's a very aspirational thing that you might even not even achieve, because members of your team won't be there to see it happen. So how then can they be expected to buy into your future vision and work towards that if you're the founder and you're going to be the one that sticks it out until the end, most likely? So something less to worry about is mission and vision. You can have them. Don't get me wrong. Some of my clients do have them. It keeps them guided in some way, shape, or form. But it's something to worry a little bit less about, especially on the day-to-day. Now, the third worry here is your competitors. Now, you might say, we need to think about them to develop our brand. Yes, sure. But most industries have several, if not hundreds, maybe even thousands of competitors that they're competing with. Even in my line of work, there are a lot of me because a lot of me follow me. So quite honestly, as long as you look, sound distinctive enough to not infringe on or be mistaken for a competitor, stop looking into your backyard, into your neighbor's backyard, should I say, and focus on tending on your own lawn and your garden. If you focus more, that's a really labored metaphor, but if you focus more on how you can help your consumers than worrying about what it is your nearest competitor is doing, you're going to find a better solution to better engage with them as a result, with your consumers, that is, to deliver a better level of service that they need, because you won't be focused on playing catch up or doing things differently for the sake of doing things differently, just to be unique. Play your own game, blinkers on, kind of like a horse does down the narrow. All right. That's worry number three. Let's go to 4. And that is your social media statistics. Social media has the word social in it for a reason. I've talked about this a fair bit. It should be a social place for interaction with your consumers and giving them value in return for their time and attention, rather than a place to sell. I mean, not to say you can't, but worrying about how many likes, shares, views, comments that you get should be a fun metric to see and go, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. But should not be treated as a measurement for success in your marketing, because social media is there to help build your brand in the long run. Using it as a marketing metric, I really don't like. I don't see the value in it personally. Sure, you can funnel people away to your sales channels, but up front, they're there to gain confidence in your brand and recognize what it is you have to offer. They might not need you now, but at least you're showing up and you're staying top of mind. But here's the biggest one for you. You never know who's watching that isn't liking, that isn't sharing, that isn't commenting. A lot of them are the people who buy from you. It's crazy, I know. From experience, I know. And it plays out for so many brands. This means that you can't trust the statistics, the metrics of your social media, especially when it comes to an algorithm if it's present in that social media, which is pretty much all of them. So worry less about these things and strive to improve your brand over time, as it's going to help influence the success of your business. Because if every successful business that you know, and maybe you even buy, that has come here before you and has grown exponentially to maybe cult-like global status by leaning into their branding, then why aren't you considering branding as a serious contributor to making a positive impact on your business's success too? Even if it's just to make your marketing more effective, branding can contribute to that success. So with that is me done for another episode of All About Branding. I'm your host, Frank. This might be the last episode for a little while because I want to try and focus on some other things related to branding, including my clients' work, obviously. But all in good time, I'm going to reveal a couple of things in the back half of this year, because we're nearly up to the end of financial year for Australia here. And I've had a good go at it this financial year for my business, which is good. But it's now time to attend some aspirational things that I've been working towards in the last few months and planning in my little head. Actually, it's quite a big head, but it's a very peanut-shaped head. But I'm going to be working on those in the next few months. So if I turn up for another All About Branding, it might only be in the podcast. It might not be a YouTube live stream. It might not be an article, because I like podcasting personally. It's a nice medium to speak your mind rather than having to articulate in words. But having said that, all of this activity of me writing an article, doing a live stream, turning that into a podcast for Instagram and YouTube, and then onto the All About Branding podcast, there's been a bit of a method to that madness, and you're going to see what that then turns into. It's probably not going to be this year, and I'm really teasing you here, but in terms of what it will turn into, I hope it will be something that I can look back on and be proud of, and maybe it's be something that will be of help to you. Most likely, I'll give you this, it's most likely going to be for my fellow branding designers, creators out there. So I guess stick around with bated breath and we'll go from there. But until then, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on this episode. From here, I will see you on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on TikTok as well. But until maybe the next episode, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. I'm Frank, and take care. Bye.